The snowstorm roared across the battlefield, howling like a vengeful spirit. Wind tore at the banners, the earth groaned beneath the clash of armies, and the sky itself seemed to mourn with falling snow. In the midst of this chaos, a warhorse slipped on the icy ground and crashed into the frozen earth. Its rider tumbled with it, swallowed by the storm. Yet this rider was no ordinary warrior. She was a woman, her armor gleaming beneath the veil of snow, her sword gripped with a hand as steady as iron, her spirit fierce enough to stand against 1,000 men. The enemy surged forward, their bows raised like a dark forest of thorns. In an instant, arrows hissed through the air, a deadly rain that blotted out the sky. From the blizzard's depths, shapes emerged, an army vast as the ocean, sworn to crush her and those few who still stood beside her. For at that moment, she was not leading an army, but clinging to the last shreds of hope with only 7 warriors at her side. Among them stood her commander, General Yashinaka, proud and unyielding. Her own brother was there as well, and 4 other loyal men, their armor battered, their eyes lit with defiance though they knew death pressed close. It was a battle that could not be won. Defeat loomed like a shadow swallowing the horizon. Yashinaka turned, his voice calm though fate pressed heavy upon him.
Do not let them know that a woman fought here. Leave, and live!
He commanded. But the samurai woman did not bow her head. Instead, she rose, her eyes blazing like fire beneath the snow. In her heart she whispered,
"This will be my last enemy."
She leapt into the storm. Her sword flashed, cutting not only through the flesh of her foe but through the very curtain of falling snow. In a single stroke, an enemy soldier fell, his head rolling across the frozen ground like a stone cast from a mountain stream. The storm paused, as if the heavens themselves gasped at her fury. Then, in an act that would echo through centuries, she lifted her hands to her helmet. With one motion, she cast it aside, and a river of long black hair spilled down her shoulders. She was no longer merely a warrior in armor, she was the moon breaking free of clouds, fierce and radiant in the night sky. The enemies faltered. To face death at the hand of a warrior was one thing. To face death at the hand of a woman who fought like a tempest, beautiful and terrible, was another. She lifted the severed head of her enemy, slammed it against her saddle, and turned her gaze to Yashinaka. And the general, surrounded by doom, smiled with pride. His heart, though heavy with the weight of the inevitable, swelled with honor. And so she obeyed. With one final glance, she mounted her horse and vanished into the storm, leaving her commander to meet his fate as he had sworn, dying not in retreat, but in battle. That woman was Tomoe Gozen. The legendary samurai whose name still burns like a flame across the centuries. The snow soon covered Yashinaka and the last of his men. They fell beneath waves of enemy soldiers, their bodies claimed by the frozen ground. But Tomoe Gozen lived on, disappearing into the storm like a hawk taking flight. What became of her after that night is a mystery tangled in legend. Some say she was hunted down by 30 soldiers and, though she fought like a lioness cornered, she was at last slain. Others claim she was captured, her sword torn from her hands, and forced into slavery. Yet there are gentler tales, that she escaped and, tired of blood, lived out her days in secrecy as a nun, her prayers rising like smoke for the souls she had seen fall. Some villagers swore they saw a priestess who often visited Yashinaka's grave, her face lined with sorrow, her steps slow with memory. They whispered that she was Tomoe, mourning until her final breath. Whatever the ending, all the stories agree on one truth: Tomoe Gozen was a warrior like no other. Her very name carried honor. Tomoe was her given name, but Gozen was a title of respect, spoken to address noble women. She lived nearly 9 centuries ago, during one of the bloodiest eras of Japan, the Genpei War. That war was born from the clash of two mighty clans, the Taira and the Minamoto. Tomoe fought for the Minamoto, under her commander and childhood companion, Yashinaka. As children they rode horses together, hunted wild animals, and trained with bow and sword. By the time they were grown, she was no mere companion. She was his right hand. His trusted captain. His storm on the battlefield. Her horse, swift and untamed, was named Spring Breeze. When she rode into battle, enemies said it was as though a sudden wind had swept the plain, scattering men like leaves before a storm. In 1183, Yashinaka and Tomoe led the Minamoto forces to a great victory against the Taira. Word spread across Japan of the woman warrior whose beauty rivaled her skill, whose courage was like fire itself. Yet by 1184, Yashinaka was cornered. Betrayed by politics, surrounded by rival forces, he chose to make his final stand. At Owazu, with only a handful of men, he turned to Tomoe and gave her his last command: to live. She obeyed, though her heart shattered. She struck down enemies with the fury of a storm, her sword singing one last song of steel, before disappearing into the snow. From that day onward, her life became a tale without an ending. Did she perish in battle? Did she pray at her commander's grave until her dying breath? Did she vanish into history, her name echoing only in whispers? None can say. But her legend lived on. The great epic The Tale of the Heike records her name, speaking of her beauty and her unmatched skill with bow and sword. And though centuries have passed, the spark she lit has never dimmed. And for Tomoe Gozen was more than a warrior. She was a flame in an age of shadows, a star that shone in a sky ruled by men. She stood where few women dared, leading armies, commanding men, fighting until the very end. And when she vanished into the snowstorm that night, she did not vanish forever. She became a legend. A tempest on horseback. A blade of light in the storm. A name that refuses to be forgotten. And so, the snow fell, covering the battlefield of Japan. The name of Tomoe Gozen lived on, carried in whispers, in songs, in the pages of the Tale of the Heike. But history does not end here, for beyond the snows of Japan, another legend awaits. Across the desert sands, along the mighty Nile, beneath the golden sun, a queen will rise. Her name is Cleopatra. She ruled not in Rome, but in Egypt, the land of pharaohs, gods, and eternal rivers. Join us next time, as we uncover her story. And if you wish to journey with us through the great legends of history, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe.